Alright, so our buddy Rug, that's literally all the username says, Rug, says they have recently started meditating, and every time they finish, they get this feeling of absolute joy. They just start smiling, and out of nowhere, even though they've been going through a lot of stress in their life, they just start smiling out of nowhere, even though their recent life has been quite stressful. Now, it's not really a question, this is just a comment, but I thought I'd just respond to this and just explain a bit more about how the meditation process can bring out emotion from you. So if you think of our bodies and our minds as one entity, right? So you've got your mind, which is a part of your body. It's all interconnected. And what usually happens, for most of us, what happens is we are pretty much entirely identified with our mind and our ego, our egoic mind, And what this means is that every time we experience stress or anything like this, it interacts first with the ego and then with the mind, and then we internalize it in the body once the ego and the mind have decided how we're going to react to it. This is dangerous because not only does this mean that stress always makes us feel bad, but it also means that things like joy are never fully expressed openly. And so when you start to meditate, what really happens is you're disconnecting. You're disconnecting from your mind and your ego, and you're taking your awareness, which is not in your mind, by the way. Your awareness and your consciousness does not reside in what you experience as your thinking mind, right? The internal conversation that's always going on in your head. That is not where your consciousness resides. It's actually much higher than that, and what we often get trapped in our minds, and we assume that internal dialogue is all our consciousness is. But if you actually take a step back and meditate and start to observe those thoughts, you start to realize that actually that is just the mind. That is just noise or chatter. You can turn that off, you can filter that out, and then what you're left with is this pure, complete, whole state of awareness, which is just completely serene. You're not affected by anything negative. You're not inhibited or limited in any way. And for a lot of people, when they start to meditate and they start to get a glimpse of that awareness, that being, that sense of being, they suddenly release all of the emotions and the sadness or the joy that they have been holding in for all these years. And I remember when I first started meditating, it really did feel like it was all being released. A couple of times I actually cried when I meditated, and it felt like a sort of emotional release of all the stuff that was being held and locked away by the egoic mind. So I think that's actually fairly normal, Rug. I think this is actually a normal thing to experience. Now, you don't mention that you were crying or that you were emotional. You just say that you had this feeling of joy, this serene feeling of joy, despite having stress in your life. Now, you've got to understand that stress is almost entirely created by the ego. The situations in your life that are happening, pretty much they're neutral. And although your egoic mind wants to label them as positive or negative, but pretty much everything that happens in life is just neutral. It just happens. It's just what is. Your reaction to it based on your ego and your filters in your mind is the only thing that makes you feel what we define as stress, right? Stress isn't somewhere out in the world that you can go and touch it or interact with it or get infected with it. Stress is 100% created by your egoic mind. It doesn't exist. The same with fear, the same with all these other things. So once you understand that, and once you understand that no matter what the situation is, no matter what happens to you, the way you react to it defines and controls how you feel. And so stress in this case, completely unnecessary. Stress and fear are completely unnecessary in your life. They don't serve any purpose whatsoever, other than, funnily enough, to strengthen the ego. And so the ego, the mind chatter that's always going on in your head, is very invested, very interested in maintaining that sense of fear and stress, because that's how it survives. But if you take away that and just see what is, and just understand that what the reality of the situation is, that's all there is, right? This moment, the present moment. If you get into that state, then of course you're going to be releasing these things that you otherwise held back. You might experience joy, you might even start crying. It doesn't really matter at first. All that matters is you're just being present, and you're not letting the stresses of your past or your future. You're not letting these things influence or affect you in the present, which is the only thing that matters. So I hope this made sense just wanted to start responding to some of these comments, and I'll see you next time.